to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria. You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to our podcast prepared by ARTCAST-Radio all the way from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria. My name is Gudran Columbus Monyika. I'm an African from Tanzania, and our topic today is African culture and art. Which kind of culture and art I want you to get to know and understand about it is African culture and art. This is a very wide topic because Africa is the second largest and populous continent in the world. So today we will just hear some few interesting facts about Africa, art, culture and tradition, which will probably open people's mind with new knowledge about African culture, art and tradition, especially to those who didn't know anything about Africa and those who knows everything which is wrong about Africa. You are all welcome to listen. Special thanks to our main sponsor of ARTCAST-Radio, Erasmus Plus.
You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Before we continue with our topic, let's hear some interesting fact about Africa.
To the rest of the world, it seems to be one gigantic country where South Africa is the capital and the people speak one language. But Africa is a continent with 54 countries where each has its own, usually variety of languages. Why don't we go on a brief ride on this together? My name is this other guy and this is Africa Interesting Facts. There are several different theories regarding the origin of the name Africa. Most etymologists believe the name is derived from Afri, the title for a group of people who dwelt in North Africa near Carthage around the 3rd century BC, and Ka, the Roman suffix for country or land. Ancient Greeks and Romans originally used the term Africa to apply only to the northern region of the continent. In Latin, the word Africa means sunny, and the word Afrique in Greek means without cold. Africa is the second largest continent in the world by area, covering 44,391,162 square kilometers in area. You can fit all of China, USA, India, and a large part of Europe in Africa combined. Being the second largest continent by population as well, Africa has more than 1 billion people, and they speak, by estimates, close to 2,000 languages. None of those languages is called African. Just like any other continent, Africans don't all know each other, and we don't all speak Swahili. Arabic in various dialects is the most common language spoken in Africa, and most Africans are fluent or conversant in more than one language. There are more French-speaking people in the whole continent of Africa than in France. Africa is not Sahara Desert or a wide stretch of rainforest. We don't have lions roaming in our backyards. We don't ride elephants to school. We don't walk around naked in the bush. We don't live in caves. And we don't all live in huts. If you imagine that all houses in Africa have no plumbing and no toilets, then you are an idiot. The African continent is the wealthiest in natural resources. The world's largest reserves of precious metals are found in this continent, with over 40% of the gold reserves, over 60% of the cobalt, and 90% of the platinum reserves all found in the continent. When we visit Europe or America from Africa, we don't swim across the ocean. We take flights like everyone else. And when aeroplanes come to Africa, they don't land in the bush. On your way from the airport to the hotel, you probably won't be carried by a donkey cart. We have cities, we have electricity, we have schools, and we know what Facebook is. Central Eastern Africa is believed by most scientists to be the origin place of humans. Charles Darwin was the first scientist to suggest that the ancestors of modern humans may have originated in Africa. This, however, was rejected by the prejudicial Western world until well into the 20th century. The world's largest land animal is the African elephant. The world's tallest animal, the giraffe, lives in Africa. The fastest land animal in the world, the cheetah, lives in Africa. Africa is home to the world's largest reptile, the Nile crocodile. Speaking of the Nile, it is 6,650 kilometers long, making it the world's longest river, and it is of course located in Africa. 13% of the world's hydroelectric power potential lies in the Congo River. It is the deepest river in the world and the most powerful river in Africa. This river has the potential to single-handedly power all of sub-Saharan Africa. The novel Tarzan of the Apes, set in Africa and published by American author Edgar Rice Burroughs in 1912, created such a compelling image of Africa in the book's title character that a New Orleans newspaper writer only half-jokingly suggested that if Tarzan were to run for president of America in 1929, he would receive as many votes as the incumbent president, Herbert Hoover. The deserts of Tunisia house the original Star Wars movie set for the film's planet Tatooine. More than 30 years after the first movie in the series, the sets are still well preserved, and visitors to Tunisia can even stay in Luke Skywalker's home. This is Africa.
You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria. You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Africa is a continent steeped in tradition derived from ancient as well as modern influences. The culture of Africa is varied and manifold. It's a product of the diverse population that today inhabit the continent of Africa and African diaspora. It has been affected by both internal and external forces. Art and craft have a rich tradition in Africa. African art and craft include sculpture, painting, pottery, ceremonial, religious, headgears, and many more. African culture beliefs, African religion including animism, spiritual beliefs, witchcraft, and shamanism. Let's get to know some of these African religion and beliefs, starting with animism. Animism encompasses the belief that there is no separation between the spiritual and physical world, and soul or spirit exist, not only in human but also in some animals, plants, rocks, geographical features such as mountains or rivers, and other entities of natural environment including thunder, winds, shadow, and sun. Shamanism is another kind of religion in Africa. Shamanism is another kind of religion belief in Africa. It's a religious practice that involves a person who practices it to reach altered state of consciousness in order to perceive and interact with the spirit world and channel these transcendental energies into this world.
You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria. You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Are you ready? Akulam sikia hii babake Najim wasewa wifi kochi Semwako Bipin Arishifileshi Kibabu cha maajabu Mwenyezi Mungu ajagiza nyie Mwenyezi Mungu ajagiza nyie na wala kushusha neno kama atakuja babu Qur'ani haikuongea kama atakuja babu Biblia haikuongea kama atakuja babu Babu sio nabii babu na wala sio mtume babu Babu sio nabii babu na wala sio mtume babu binadamu wa Mungu kibabu Nyie mlokwenda loniondo kwa kibabu mlofunga safari kwenda kupata matibabu Wengine mmepona wengine bado wagonjwa Wako kitandani wanamong'onyoka midonda Wako kitandani wanasumbuliwa na magonjwa Walivyo sikia hii Naye Godi taita Tisha kama taa
You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
South Africa, Victoria. Kairisi, Tumamangula Modabi, Prison.
African tradition is expressed through many different art forms, such as music, dance, and theater, painting, sculpture, and beadwork. Example of tradition expressed through work of art is a sculpture of masks. There is biombo masks, which are usually covered by wood and colored with red tukura powder, a dye made from the camwood tree. Biombo masks are usually worn during tribal rituals and ceremonies. Another mask is baure mask, which also known as gori mask. It is used in tribal dances during harvest festival in position to honor distinguished visitor and as the funeral of important figure. When it comes to dance performance in Africa, these performances are fundamental dimension of culture. Whether taken as a practice of everyday life or family event, performance are events in which knowledge is produced. People sit and reflect and then perceive perspectives of and adverse. Thanks to performance, people find and reinforce the individual and the collective identities and resist or subvert prevailing social orders. Thus, the social context and the audience become performative. Most of traditional dances are referred as ngoma. This is a Swahili word which also used in various Central and Southern African language. May denote a drum as instrument, a dance, or entire musical event. You may dance a ngoma, you may pray a ngoma, you may go to an ngoma, and also you may have an ngoma enacted for you. Some of medical practitioners who believe that their patient is plagued by spirits may arrange a therapeutic ngoma for them. African culture traditional dress. In Africa, there is a lot of cultural dressing style. Here is just two popular cultural dresses for men and women. Starting with kanga. This is a colorful garment worn by women and occasionally by men throughout the African Great Lakes regions. Some tailors use kanga to make shirt, blouse, trouser, skirt for both men and women. And the second is kanzu. This is a white or cream colored robe worn by men in Africa Great Lake region again. It is an ankle or floor-length garment usually worn during specific occasions and ceremonies.
You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Unataka kujua
You're listening to ARTCAST from our studio in Sofia, Bulgaria.
Wapi Mama Dula wapi hivi kipala nachoka sana. Adori ya mtiti wapi kenda Mama Bege salimia Mama Rosi, hii ni sauti ya Wadola. Wapi mema ujubi anakusalimia bibi hapa, anakuambia kitu juu ya kitu, wewe acha konge chako ni changu, siku ya mashauri tuwe pamoja wao.
Despite of having those beautiful and unique arts, culture and tradition, in African history, our culture was somehow destroyed in 19th century during the scramble for Africa by Europeans, which led to colonialism until 1950s when African countries started to get their independence. The impact of it was too high. New religion belief was introduced in Africa. Example, Christianity, new dressing styles, new languages like French, English and Portuguese, new art form like orchestral music, dance style, Europe kind of theater and so on. Both came with positive and negative impact to African arts and culture. The main problem here is in 21st century, where Africans suffer. The problem here is that still in this 21st century, still Africa suffer with neo-colonialism, which make people forget about their indigenous culture and art form. Only few communities in Africa, especially in rural areas, still practice and preserve their culture, tradition and arts. Thanks for listening to this podcast. It is me, your host, Gudrun Monika from ARTCAST-Radio, Bulgaria. Please follow us on social medias as Open Space Foundation on Facebook and Instagram, without forgetting to subscribe our YouTube channel, Open Space Foundation, for more podcasts from our radio ARTCAST. Thanks and bye.
The project is carried out thanks to the financial support of the European program Erasmus+, K-Action 2, Capacity Building in the Field of Youth.